call the Clewiston City Commission meeting to order. It's 5 p.m. on Monday, July 17th, 2023. If you would stand, and we're going to have a prayer and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Pastor Ramey to come up to the podium and lead us in a word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather and make decisions for the city of Clewiston. I pray you'd give wisdom to the mayor and the city officials, the staff, everyone involved. I pray that they would make decisions that would be a blessing and prosperous for Clewiston. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Manager, any changes or deletions, additions to the agenda?
No, sir.
All right. We'll move public comments to after the presentations. We'll move on to the consent agenda. A motion to approve.
So moved. Approve.
Second. Motion by Gardner, second by Edmonds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have a couple of presentations tonight. I'd like to call Aaron Russell of the Florida League of Cities to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. And good evening, Mayor, Commission, staff, and citizens. As stated, my name is Aaron Russell, and I'm the Membership Programs Specialist from the Florida League of Cities, which is located in Tallahassee, Florida. And just for the audience members who may be unfamiliar with the Florida League of Cities, we have served as the united voice for Florida's 411 cities, towns, and villages since 1922. And our goal is to meet the needs of our cities by providing advocacy, education, resources, and other services. And of course, always standing up for the rights of the government closest to the people, governments like the city of Clewiston. So I just want to say thank you for being a dedicated member of the Florida League of Cities. But it's my special honor to be here this evening to present Mayor James Pittman with the John Land Years of Service Award in recognition of his 20 years of service to the city of Clewiston. And this was a surprise to the mayor. He didn't know it was happening until today. But the John Land Years of Service Award, which I'm here to present this evening, was named in honor of Apopka Mayor John Land, who served his city for 60 years. And so this award recognizes our elected municipal officials like Mayor Pittman for their extensive dedicated years of service. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, local government is the government closest to the people. And so serving your city as mayor or commissioner, you have touched hundreds of lives through this service that you have done here, that we're here to recognize and celebrate this evening. So if I may just read a little bit of the resolution. It says, whereas America's municipal governments have long relied upon the unselfish leadership of their citizens for local self-government, and Florida's municipal governments share the time-honored role as the level of government closest to the people. And whereas this reliance places extraordinary responsibilities upon citizen legislators, our municipal elected officials, who make significant sacrifices of their time and energies on behalf of their citizenry, making this commitment a true labor of love. And whereas municipal leaders strive for the excellence and the governance of their city, town, or village, and commit themselves to providing quality services, governing effectively, and working to improve the quality of life. And whereas several terms in office are a high compliment voters give to an official. And with these years of experience comes a strengthening of wisdom, discernment, and strong leadership skills that bring tremendous values to the municipal governments of Florida. And whereas James L. Pittman has held office in the city of Clewiston for 20 years and is recognized for this achievement. So on behalf of the Florida League of Cities, I want to say thank you for your municipal service and congratulations on 20 years.
Thank you.
y'all come down front, and we have a special guest that should join him. Come on up.
Actually, Paula, why don't you, because it's just something, come up here, and we'll stand behind you. Do you want to give your camera to Sherry or Debbie and have them take a picture?
I know.
Somebody take a picture. Ashley will take a picture.
I don't care. I like it. It's blurry. All right, ready? 1, 2. All right.
And Sherry, well, one more from Paula.
Everybody smile.
You made quite the trip.
Thanks, Paul.
My first time too, though. I'm liking it so far.
You're welcome.
That was a pleasant surprise. Well, we have two other presentations from our Clewiston Police Department. And I'm guessing that Sergeant Scruggs is going, see here? I don't see him. Okay,
Dan's gonna do it, Dan Brophy.
you want me to read it and then you say a few words? Okay. Sergeant Demetrius Scruggs recommended both of these officers for this award. And the officers are Detective Charles, I don't see him either.
He's at military
Oh, is he?
Yes.
Servant, more service, amen. And Rebecca Wood in the front row. On June 19, 2023, Officer Wood and Detective Williams responded to a distress call regarding a juvenile who had fallen off of a jet ski and was struggling in Lake Okeechobee at the levee. Without hesitation, Officer Wood and Detective Williams entered the lake, risking their own lives to save the young man. Even with the lake's depth and distance of approximately 30 yards, they were able to swim successfully, reach the juvenile, and bring him back to shore, ensuring his safety. Their actions exemplify the highest standards of dedication, bravery, and commitment to public service. Officer Wood and Detective Williams demonstrated exceptional teamwork and calmness under pressure, acting swiftly and decisively to prevent what could have been a tragedy in that young man's life. So, Commander, if you would come forward, I think we're going to present you guys with an award.
So it's a great honor as a commanding officer to present these awards. Our officers do an awful lot of great things out there, and it's quite a privilege to be able to do this. Detective Williams will have a private ceremony with him. We won't leave him out, so we don't hurt his feelings. But Rebecca, if you could, Mr. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind.
All right.
Come up front there.
Are we standing up?
Yep, get him again.
On this award, you'll notice there's a particular bar. It's a red, blue, and white bar. As soon as Alicia goes, that she will wear that proudly on her uniform.
Thank you.
That doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, that'll save us a trip. Because we have one more life-saving award. This is Acting Sergeant Lionel, oh, is he Connors here? Conyers?
No.
He's not here either, but that's okay, they're working. He recommended these two officers for this life-saving award. Officer James Esteverne, close enough? Officer Eric Williams. And And it's what happened was, on June 14th, 2023, these officers, James and Eric, were dispatched to the 600 block of East Pasadena in reference to a 47-year-old male unconscious and not breathing. When they arrived on scene, they placed the patient off of the bed onto the floor and took over CPR from the patient's wife. Once Officer Eric Williams arrived on scene, he joined in and they did two-man CPR. I don't know, it didn't say how long you did it, but I've been on those scenes myself, so I know it's a long, it seems like hours when it's probably only about 10 or 20 minutes. They continued CPR, the life-saving measures, until the patient started breathing on his own. And I want to tell you something from personal experience. To bring someone back from not breathing is very rare. This is a very low percentage when you actually get a save, so to speak. And I'm sure it's because of the quick response time. And when EMS arrived, they transported the patient, and in true community police fashion, Officer Williams went by the hospital later that morning to check on the man, and he was alert and speaking with his family members. So, thank you.
Ready? 1, 2.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all. Thank you.
You guys are more than welcome to stay, but I understand we're having a meeting and a workshop, so you may not want to sit there.
Yeah, we didn't even get them
Be
out.
safe. Appreciate y'all.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Okay, earlier we moved public comments. These public comments are not for any agenda item. If you want to speak concerning an agenda item, you will have an opportunity during that item. But are there any other public comments from anyone present?
Hi, Rochelle Lee. I live at 337 West Pasadena Avenue. And I know this might be something that correlates with the hotel that might be spoke about later, but this is about the current hotel. I know you guys have seen me in here on several occasions, and I'm trying to come back once again and speak once again. I know that when we've talked before on several occasions, apparently I was misled. Police department must have been misled because we were told that they could park the semis or boat trailers on the grass, or I don't know, that was my interpretation of it. Maybe that was not correct, but that was my interpretation of it. So this whole time I thought there was nothing that could be done. Since then, I've done my homework, I've done my research, I've made contact with Debbie, Miss Clay, with, okay. She has really helped me tremendously through this process. We've worked together. She's, like I said, we've both done our homework and tried to make sure that we're on the right page. We've come to the conclusion, and we now understand that you cannot park in the road. You cannot park on the grass because it's the right-of-way in the distance from the middle of the road to where you could park. And even if there was enough room, there's drainage there, and you can't disturb the ground. So now that we know that, and I did come to the zoning meeting last few weeks ago, And even since then, and I'm going to leave you with pictures of semis that are continuously parked in the road in the dark. Started at 7 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock at night, semis still there, pitch dark, completely in the road. I know that Miss Clay went and spoke with Harry, also spoke with the manager of the hotel. They told her that they have off-site parking, that should never be an issue, that they would make sure that they were taking care of that, and that they would make sure that there wasn't anybody parking back there. But it's still happening. And on that day, Harry was outside. So, I mean, I drove around, I, checked so I'm here not just as a concerned citizen. I feel like we are all bright people. And I feel like today I'm ready for us to put our heads together and come up with a solution. Not just me standing up here saying this is happening, what could we do? I feel like there are things that can be done. I understand that, I might have been born here in this little town and been here for 47 years. There's growth. We need a hotel. I get it. I'm not opposed to the hotel. I think the back of the hotel looks nice. I think they've done a good job with their trees and their planting. The only issue I have is the semis and the parking. I'm coming. The other thing was, I know when the officer came, I would love to know, and I'm asking a genuine question, how many times have they been cited? Has anyone ever been cited? Because I know when the officer came that night, they said, oh, we'll just get them to move. Well, it took them 2 hours, and I could pretty much tell what was happening. They couldn't get them either to wake up or anybody to claim the truck. So all the man hours, all the time that's taken away from when we really have emergencies, and we have officers that are sitting there trying to get somebody to wake up or find out whose vehicle it is to get it moved, I think it's time wasted. I think it's money wasted. My suggestions would be, can we put a city sign? I know the hotel is working on, and the truck, I will send you the pictures. I have copies of them. The truck is parked in front of the no parking sign. Harry agreed to put a no parking sign out in the ground to alleviate that. Well, that was great, but they didn't park on the grass. They just parked in the road, so they weren't on the grass. Is there any way, and this is a question, maybe you have to do the research, but is there any way we could put a no parking anytime? I don't know how the sign would read, but a city sign, not that's just a hotel sign on the responsibility of the hotel, but maybe a sign that's no parking in the right of way or no parking, vehicles will be towed. Another option would be a yellow barrier pole where they can't park on the grass. Another option is if Harry can't see the back of the hotel, I know they have security, put a security camera that points right there that the people at the front desk see, so there cannot be the I didn't see it, I didn't know they were parked there. I don't know, but I'm just asking for a solution, not just a comment today. And I know that we can't maybe come up with a solution today, but maybe we can move forward and come up with some solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rochelle, I don't think you're being unreasonable.
I don't either.
I really don't. I just wanted you to know that. I don't think you're being unreasonable. I think that you acknowledging that the city has grown, we need the hotel, maybe we need another hotel, but at the same time, we have to, appreciate that there are people that live there too.
I understand.
Only that, I'm glad, Rochelle, you brought it up. I mean, I thought after the last meeting that there was no parking whatsoever there. That was always the intent, that there should not be any parking on the back side of the hotel. But also that I'm surprised that there's parking on the roadway, and that's not being addressed. So, and I don't know how often that's happening. I know you say you have pictures, but Randy, I think that, I know we've got to have a solution here. And the no parking, the small no parking sign, I saw it today when I went by to look at the
Yeah, I think
the
that's
new
more of a
project.
temporary. We need a more permanent sign.
That's
I
definitely
agree
not
with
something that would dissuade anyone.
But my understanding was someone reported to the PD, and they did come and got them to move, but it took a while, and so I certainly appreciate her discussion.
And I don't
on
want
that.
to be the city. I don't want to be the street police.
But it's
calling
never
the PD
it's
over
never
that at the
legal to
time.
park in the
Yeah.
street, and unless
Right.
it's an emergency situation.
Right.
So I've already discussed it with the commander. The chief's on leave this week,
And
I'll be happy to, if you want to come see me tomorrow, we're happy to sit down
have to make a solution. The solution's already here. If a
They're
vehicle.
not allowed to park
If a
there.
vehicle, whether it's a golf cart, but specifically if it's a semi in a residential road blocking traffic, the resolution we already have. Hook up and tow them away and cite them, period. To put some perspective on this is right on front of these people's homes. They look out, there's a semi. We pull out of their driveway, there's a semi. Kids playing, there's a semi. There should be semis driving down that road, let alone parked in it. So we don't have to sit down and talk about a resolution, it's there. We just need to do it
Yeah,
and not search somebody for 2 hours. Let's do it.
I think you just said the sign we need. No
And-
through semi-traffic on both ends of the road.
But it don't have to be, but it don't have to be posted to say you can't park in the middle of the road.
No, that's pretty common.
But what happens, my question to that would be, if it's not stated, or how do we enforce it besides me living there and seeing it and constantly have to call?
If you hold a CDL, you know you can't park that vehicle. You know you can't drive down that road.
They know.
And
Thank you
really, it
very
wouldn't
much
take
for
The,
listening.
the drivers know they cannot park there.
But as far as signage, I think I know Harry's made an attempt with the no
Yeah,
parking sign, but I think honestly, it needs to be a city sign.
Yeah, it needs to be a permanent sign.
Permanent sign
That
on
was a
both sides of
temporary.
that property to
And
indicate that.
He's
or
indicated
along
his
that roadway.
cooperation to do that, so.
But I
We'll
feel
make
like the
sure.
homeowner's frustration is,
She's having to come,
like,
keep coming back.
we all know this.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that you can't park there. The semi-truck drivers know it. The police department knows it's their job to do it. Why is she here tonight?
It's not an inconvenience.
This
it's
isn't a
major
new
safety.
thing, that, am I right?
You're exactly right. And I feel like I'm just being that Karen, and I don't want to be. I just want to come up with a solution so I don't have to be the person going, here's another semi. I mean, I have a teenage driver, and I'm telling you, when it gets dark and that semi's out there, it doesn't have lights on. It doesn't have brake lights. I mean, it's just an issue. And I know we're going to address this later, and I won't speak. I'm just going to say this now. We know it's a problem. We're putting in another hotel. We need to come up with a solution so we're not doing the same thing when that one, because that one is going to be right in my driveway. And I'm not fighting the hotel. I'm just fighting the street behind it to give us some sort of a compromise where it's still livable for us.
Sounds like Harry's made an effort to remedy the issue. Now it's up to us when it comes to parking the road. And I'm sure we're gonna.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Thank you.
Debbie might be able to add some more perspective to it.
Is there a designated area for semis to park in?
They
the
have
city?
one off-site, but there isn't one on that property.
I know, but if somebody's coming through Clewiston in a semi, I mean, I've seen them park in front of the restaurants in the median.
Debbie can
And
speak
go in
to-
and get food.
Debbie can speak to what the code prohibits on that.
The code does prohibit them parking on the road or on the grass or.
Or even in private lots unless
They
their
can only be there
owner has
15
approved
minutes
it.
if they're making
But I know
deliveries.
that, they want to stop and get food.
But
or
never can
They
they park
may
in the
have an
median and turn
emergency, they may need to run, into one of the.
And they can do that in
Walmart or
commercially
something.
zoned areas, but not in a residential
Okay, so
area.
they could,
Not on the roadway.
You certainly never.
no, I
would.
know that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is there a designated area where they can park?
Only in the commercial parking lots of commercial
With
establishments
permission.
that allow them.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
with permission.
Walmart?
If Walmart allows them, sometime Walmart
I see
gives
more
a letter and
parking.
doesn't allow them. It's all dependent on the
I see
private
more and-
owner.
I see more and more parking at the Ford dealership now too.
Yeah, me too. The old Ford dealership. Me too. No, I just wanted to reiterate, so glad to see you in person and meet you. We've talked several times. I just wanted to reiterate and reassure that Mr. Patel, that is a temporary sign that he put up immediately when I spoke to him about the semi that was on the grass, creating them really huge ruts for the city, which was creating a problem with our MS4 permit. He put that up in response to that, but he is seeking permission from the hotel brand for a permanent allowable placement of a more monumental sign that would help that if you understand. City still has the right to put it up in our right of way, but I just wanted you to know that that's not where he's stopping. He's just seeking his brand permission to place a more permanent sign for that.
Thank you, Debbie.
So, to the manager, I guess you'll research this quickly.
Well, the PDs, we've already
I want to know
discussed it.
what's done. I want you to email all of us and say, this is what we're going to do.
Sure, okay.
And then we can let the residents know, this is what's happening. Now,
All right.
you're probably still going to have to call once in a while when you see it, but hopefully it's not very often. But I think the sign, I like the no-through traffic semi. And you tow one or two, and the word gets around.
They'll
They
get
won't park
around.
there. They talk to each other.
Especially once you issue a couple of citations, which we are prepared
It's not
to do.
hard. As a matter of fact, I think it'd be fun if I was on, hey, I got another one.
And they already know you can't park in the roadway.
Yeah, that's,
Commercial drivers also know you can't park in the middle of 27 and run in Dunkin' Donuts, but we see it all the time. But they know, it's on their test. They know they can't do that.
Or to park on the city street. I mean, that's to me is, I can't believe that that's happening, but and I know that it's happening, but it's just unbelievable that somebody would park a semi on a city street, no matter how small the street was or if it was a residential area. It does not make sense.
Okay, I hope, Rochelle, that helped you some. Okay, nothing further on public comments. We'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is Resolution 2023-060, a public hearing. It is a resolution that approves the variance request of Michael Atkinson to build a single-family home on a 50-foot parcel located at 322 West Ventura with a 2-year sunset clause expiring on June 28th, 2025. The window for rebuilding on the parcel was 7 years from demolition of the prior home, which was demolished on February 24th, 2015. Planning and zoning met on June 28th and considered the request, and after the review and discussion unanimously recommended approval for a 2-year sunset clause expiring on June 28th, 2025. The vote was 4-0 with board member Mickey McGahee absent. We'll open the floor for, since it is a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing for comments from anyone public or in the audience, and the manager can state if the advertising was done.
yes, sir. It was done for the record.
Is there any of the adjacent property owners that have appeared at the P and Z with concerns?
None that I'm aware of. There weren't any at the meeting. I haven't heard of any other mail-in or call.
Mayor, this item and number 5 are both quasi-judicial hearings, applications for variances and exceptions. So if anyone plans to give any testimony, any applicants plan to speak on them, I need to swear them in. So if you do plan, there's an applicant present here and would like to speak on any of these applications, please stand at this time. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you very much. And for item number, we also have to give any disclosures of ex parte communications on these applications. So if any of you have had any communication with the applicant or have conducted any site visits for item number 4, I would ask you to give the disclosure at this time. Okay, very good.
Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, any comments or questions from the commission?
I know that years ago, we did put in, that we wanted to see these 50-foot parcels be rebuilt. And I guess it's just that time is flying so quickly that the 7 years have passed, and now we have this application, which, to me, I think is reasonable, because we do want to see the rebuilding on these 50-foot lots. I mean, that's the original John Nolan plan, was 50-foot lots. So.
And as you can see with the recommendation, it would be to give them 2 additional years to accomplish it. This property it was divulged during the planning and zoning meeting that this property changed hands, and due to the pandemic, that contributed to the delay in getting it replaced within the time frame.
Any further discussion? Any comments? I'll declare the public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
I move we accept resolution 2023-60.
I second it.
Okay, a motion by Thompson, second by, I think Edmonds got in there first. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 2023-61 is a public hearing. Uh, 2023-61 approves the special exception requested by Hatendra Patel individually and as president of Dillon Motel, Inc., and Indira Patel individually to build a hotel to the height of 65 feet on the property located at 335 West Sugarland Highway and the 340 and 334, 228 and 322 West Pasadena. The city's current code allows for a maximum height of 55 feet for buildings with a special exception clause stating that the maximum height may be increased not to exceed 65 feet if all of the negative impacts are rated. I'll open this for open the public hearing for comments from anyone from the public.
Mayor, at this time, I would also once again ask if anyone has any ex parte communications to disclose or have conducted a site visit. I'd ask commissioners to report it at this time.
Okay. I did call Mr. Patel because when we spoke previously about the Hampton Inn, the parking situation had been an issue. And I know that there's not the same situation here, but I wanted to clarify that there was going to be continued landscaping, although I didn't see it on the drawing that I had here. And he did say that that's a different landscape architect who's working on that landscaping, so that there would be required by the home to suites or for that brand to have landscaping across the back. So I did talk to him about that.
Very good. All right.
Is there, so maybe the press can answer, is there a buffer or a
Antonio
landscaping
Perez,
plan?
yeah, on behalf of the applicant. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
And I would comment just for the record that there will be a technical review committee review of the actual site plan and those pieces. This won't be the last time this is reviewed. Tonight is just solely dealing with the special exception on the height. All other elements of the ordinance will have to be met, including technical review committee action on the site plan and addressing all the requirements such as landscaping and so forth. And you'll see the final plan when that's brought forward as the process goes forward.
Who wrote this resolution, Randy?
I believe the clerk. Is there some?
The last sentence, if all negative impacts are ameliorated, what negative impacts and who decides if they're negative or not?
That would be determined if if there are negative impacts identified. There haven't been any.
Identified by who?
The technical review committee hadn't identified any based on what's been submitted thus far, but as the site plan is submitted, the technical review committee would evaluate the specifics of that site plan and make sure it complies with the ordinance and meets all the requirements. But that's the extent of any negative impacts that I'm aware of.
Are emergency services right now able to handle 65 feet?
Yes. Yeah, and we've got that attestation through the fire chief in the technical review element of it.
Thank you.
About water issues, which I know we're not that far yet, but just to bring it up. The
Water and
pressure
sewer
issues and volume.
at this point, the improvements that were done for the Hampton Inn will be equally beneficial for this site, and there are no anticipated major improvements other than just connectivity. The adequate pressure is there from the first project when the water and sewer were redone to handle this site as well. Of course, they will have to meet requirements of sprinkling the facility and pass all the appropriate tests for pressure.
Further questions? As manager stated, this is just to approve the height only tonight, not the plans or anything else.
And I'll defer back to the representative. I think he had some comments at the planning and zoning unless he has anything
Only
else.
in response to maybe some specific questions, Commissioner Gardner mentioned that this hotel had requirements. This is also a Hilton product, so it'll have the same requirements. It's actually one step above the Hampton in the Hilton repertoire of hotels. Yes, and also speaking to the drawing, it's just a very basic drawing to deal with the height issue. No landscape has really been added to that. So the purpose of the drawing was just to give you a perspective of what it looked like compared to the other hotel.
I'll just ask that the TRC addresses the signage specifically about parking and using Pasadena.
And we'll want to apply the same standards we come up with for the existing hotel to the new one in that regard.
All right, any further questions or comments from the public? Commission? I'll declare the public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
I move we accept the resolution 2023-61.
Okay, a motion by Thompson, second by Highslope. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next is item 6, which is an ordinance. It's the first reading of ordinance 2023-05, 2023-06, and 2023-07. Because there are 3 different parcels of land involved in this request. The background is the ordinances rezone certain property owned by Brian Sullivan Contractor, Inc. in the blocks of 423, 424 of the general plat of Clewiston from mobile home and recreational park to multifamily R3 residential. Since it is the first reading on the ordinance, is there any comments or questions? I know they were notified within 200 feet of the property, all the residents. Was there any comments or questions?
None expressed at the planning and zoning, and I'm not aware of any that have been since then.
Any comments from the public on the first reading? It's been a long time coming eyesore in our city that is looks like it's finally going to be remedied.
Yep.
And you've seen they've already started site improvements, just clearing the site, and that's been a blessing, just getting it cleared. I would like to mention that in reviewing this, not for tonight's consideration, but just to divulge it to the public, there are, I believe it's 5 lots adjacent to this that's surrounded on 3 sides by Mr. Sullivan's property. So the consensus at the TRC level is that we pursue rezoning of those lots in a subsequent action to match, so everything in the block will be the same zoning. Those are currently also zoned mobile home, and it won't impact adversely any of the existing uses, but it will require that if any change in use occurs to those properties, that they could also pursue the multifamily. We'll be recommending it so the whole block will be the same zoning. It didn't seem to make sense to have lots on each end, lots all the way around it, mobile home, and leave 5 lots in the middle, mobile home. It won't impact his development, but it hopefully will help clean up those sites as well. And they're located along Commercio, if you ride over there.
I was hoping that I haven't spoken to Mr. Sullivan about this project, but I was hoping he was here tonight because I'm so thankful that he saved trees.
Yes,
I know that
that
he
was
didn't have a
discussed.
choice in removing some of them because of the future development, but to see that those, really mature oak trees are still there, it's really nice.
Yeah, we met on site and that was discussed specifically, and we encouraged him to keep as many as he could, and he did comply with that.
Good.
And of course, this is another benefit from the grant-funded water improvements we did on Commercio, which triggered, we believe, in some degree, the development of this property. So it was a wise investment on the part of the city a couple years ago to do that.
What a facelift for WCO.
Yeah, and his intent is to build something similar to what's further down the street before you get to the railroad track, where an area was similarly, older properties were redeveloped, two-story, townhouse type apartments. Very attractive looking in his preliminary drawings. You'll see those as the project proceeds.
And at the P and Z meeting, I know that you said that everybody was notified within 200 feet. Was there any comments from anyone in that area at all?
None.
Okay.
The Planning and Zoning Board met on June 28, 2023 to consider the request, and after review and discussion, they unanimously recommended approval. The vote was 4-0 with Mr. McGahee absent. We will entertain motions on each ordinance number because it is 3 different parcels of property. So if there's no further discussion or comments, we'll first entertain a motion on ordinance 2023-05.
I'll make a,
Accept the resolution.
Okay, motion by Thompson, second by Gardner. Was that?
and that was that was the first reading and set the public hearing for August 21st, 2023.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The second parcel is ordinance 2023-06.
I'll motion that we pass ordinance 2023-06.
Okay, motion by Highslope. Second by Thompson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the third parcel is ordinance number 2023-07. So moved by Highslope.
Second.
Second by Thompson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. It's now R3. And I'm assuming there'll be how far along are the plans, just for informational purposes?
I think he's ready to proceed with site work shortly. He's pretty well along. He's got to submit the building and get the permit, but based on your final action at the next meeting, that's his intent, is to move quickly on this project. That's what he stated at the TRC meeting, which he was president at. We've had 2 with him. Just a footnote, I would like to say with this project and the hotel, we can't underestimate the impact of the redevelopment of the site on 27, where the existing hotel and single units that are joined under single ownership are going to be demolished and replaced with the Home to Suites proposed development, which is estimated at, I believe, $17 million investment for the city in a positive way. Obviously, we need to manage all the periphery impacts and minimize those for the neighbors and everyone else, but that is going to be a significant boost to the city. And this project, similarly, as you've already observed, replaces a site that has been in disrepair for some time and hasn't contributed to the city. And it will produce, I don't have an estimate yet of the investment, but it's substantial for approximately 60 multifamily units. And we're in dire need of those, as you all know, for housing in the city. And so I just wanted to footnote that tonight.
Okay, we'll move along to item 7. Resolution number 2023-062. This resolution approves the fiscal year 2023 Community Project Funding Grant. And you can see the number there. I'll go ahead. B 23 CPFL 0388 between the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the City of Clewiston in the amount of $3 million for the wastewater treatment plant improvements and expansion project. I'll ask the manager wants to give us an update.
Yes, this, of course, is a congressional appropriation that is being funneled through the Housing and Urban Development as a grant to the city. It does not require a match. This was championed by our former congressional representative, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, and we've expressed our sincere appreciation to him before redistricting took him out of our that position with the city. This combined with the legislative appropriation from the state of Florida that was recently approved, that there'll be an agreement coming in a near term on your agenda for action to accept $11 million grant from the state to go with this. The $14 million will do what we've projected for the upgrade and expansion of our wastewater treatment plant. We're working on additional funding to supplement this, to extend lines from the plant for reuse quality water to be distributed, produced by the new plant and distributed for irrigation purposes outside around the city in new development, as well as potentially in some of our recreational facilities, including the golf course. This formalizes the agreement with Congress or with the Department of HUD on behalf of Congress to go forward. This is the money we're going to begin with to do the engineering and design, and that is the next steps that we'll be considering as we go forward. So unless the engineers here tonight, Andy, if you have any questions specifically, but they've been working with us to meet the requirements of the paperwork for locking in this grant.
Any questions for the manager or the engineer? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion on item 7, resolution 2023-062.
Approve resolution number 2023-062, and a big thank you to Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart and his staff for all their work to get this to this point.
Second.
By Gardner, second by Heislow. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item 8 is a resolution 2023-063, and it approves fiscal year 2022 community project funding grant agreement number B22 CPFL 0234 in the amount of $999,858 between the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the City of Clewiston pursuant to the authority of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2022 and the explanatory statement for the Division L of that act, which was printed in the House section of the Congressional Record on March 9, 2022, and superseding provisions of the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2023 for the Clewiston Ventura Avenue Street Repair Project. As stated before, you can give us a brief update onto the scope of the
All right,
project.
for purposes of the public listening as well as the commission, as a reminder, we've discussed this at length in workshops and others. This funding combined with the SCOP funding that you recently approved for improvements to this section of street, Ventura Avenue, that goes by here. will be combined and allow us to do streetscape improvements and other improvements beyond the simple repaving, resurfacing that'll be accomplished with the SCOP grant. The engineers here is well to discuss that, but we're ready to proceed with accepting this federal appropriation that was also championed by our former Representative Mario Diaz-Balart in 22, and we received approval. They just now are getting us the grant agreement for that one as well. So we've passed muster with all the necessary steps up to this point. But Christmas is still coming, and we're very happy to have this almost $1 million to really do a bang-up job with improvements to the parking and all other aspects of the section of Ventura Avenue that's approved for these funds, and with follow-up actions coming later on this agenda related to this specific item.
This is from Dean Duff west to
WCO.
WCO.
Yes, ma'am.
Questions or comments for the engineer, for Randy? Okay. Entertain a motion for resolution 2023-63.
Make a motion.
Okay, Edmonds, motion.
Second.
Second by Gardner. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9 is Resolution 2023-64 that approves Johnson Engineering. Approving the work order number 2020-018 of the continuing agreement for professional services between the City of Clewiston and Johnson Engineering, Inc. for the conceptual landscaping design and landscaping irrigation design services for the landscaping improvement for the Ventura Avenue Street project. And that amount is $106,300.
That's all coming from the grant funding.
Yes, this is for that grant agreement you just approved, and again, the engineer can answer any questions you have, but their role will be to begin with haste to start this design process, and we will likely have at least one more workshop. We've had a short one to discuss the elements of it, but we'll have something as we go forward to show you the proposed options for redesign and so forth.
For $106,000, does that come with landscaping too?
I'll let him answer that. That is one of the elements.
Andy Tilton for the record. Your question again, Commissioner?
I said for $106,000, does that come with the landscaping too?
No, sir, it does not.
Design, but
It's designed. It's all of the elements along the roadway except the road and the drainage. It's lighting, landscaping, parking, layout, and we're going to also look at different configurations for the roadway ahead of the roadway design. So if the commission wanted to have a 2-lane road with some dedicated turn lanes at certain intersections, we could do that rather than the center lane that's there now. But there's some options we could look at, and so any of y'all have ideas, pass them along because we're working on some options to.
Did the
show.
DOT not give us some conceptual plans for Ventura, or?
they gave us some very basic design options to the point that Andy just mentioned, but they didn't design it. They just show you pictorial depictions of what you could do. And we'll share those. I think I sent those out to the commission from the vision plan it was done, but we'll narrow it down. One of the big challenges, and the mayor and I have had a conversation about this, is pedestrian crossings. We're going to have something fairly unique for Clewiston to define those, because we do not anticipate recommending any 4-way stops in this section, nor do we recommend any additional stoplights. So we're going to have to look at creative ways, and there's ways to do it within the manuals and so forth. with the appropriate lighting and crosswalks. You've seen them in Stewart. I understand there's one recently been installed in LaBelle. And so we'll be looking at those with the appropriate lighting and safety features. Because just this afternoon, I saw somebody negotiating across right in the middle of the block with nothing. And so with landscaping, median controls, lighting, and appropriate crosswalk designations, those will be some of the major considerations. It's going to impact parking, particularly on the south side of that section, because right now, as you know, the parking goes all the way up to the businesses, and there is no real defined sidewalk for portions of it. So we're going to have to change that, and yet there's enough right-of-way to do that.
The good thing there is, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No, I just wanted to follow up on, he said about crosswalks, because there are crosswalks. I see one on South San Francisco. It's not a lit crosswalk, and at night, I think it's very dangerous. There's no flashing lights, there's no nothing.
Well, this
I
would
know that the
have to have
crosswalk
a-
in LaBelle has created a lot of issues over there as well, because it's also has issues with lack of lighting and people not using it because they don't, the pedestrians are using it, but the drivers are not seeing the crosswalk until maybe it's very dangerous situation. So if we're gonna have crosswalks, we need to be very careful and make sure that we incorporate as much safety features as possible. And not just stripes along the road.
No, it's gotta
certainly
be.
with no lighting whatsoever.
Yeah, and you know, they have solar options now, and Andy knows a lot more about that than I do, so I'll defer to him.
One of the things I was going to say is that in these different options, that some of them, by bringing some landscaping out and walkway access out, right now there's 100 feet of right-of-way. Most of you know that, but it's pavement of some type, whether it's concrete or asphalt, the entire width. In bringing some of these landscape features and hardscape features closer to the pavement, it will tend to slow people down a little bit, and then we can add lighting and add signage and other things to that. So there's a lot of that we can do in some of these different design types. So that's some of the things we'll bring to you with that. And we can also encourage better the crossing there at WCO, and because it is a four-way signalized intersection. So we need to do better to encourage people to use that. But I know how that works. I drive through LaBelle all the time, Commissioner Gardner, and I have to watch very carefully because even though it's 35 miles an hour, that sign is relatively new. The lights are about this big and they flash and they do really well strobing. But in the daytime, if the sun's on the back side of them, they are very difficult to see. And this too is an east-west road, so we've got some challenges there, and we'll have to work at it.
But I think Andy's point's well taken. Narrowing the area with improvements will help. That will be a major consideration when you decide the street configuration, because obviously the wider the opening, the more treacherous it can be. But there are successful examples of proper lighting and so forth where they do the push button and it illuminates adequately. And then you have other stuff, signage, delineate the crosswalks in a different fashion. The good news is we should have enough money with the funding from both SCOP and the federal appropriation you just approved that our congressman helped us get to do a bang-up job through there and get rid of some of the unsafe movements and opportunities that are there now.
All right, looking forward to the drawing. Just don't forget, we have parades down that road, so we'd have to reroute if we take away that.
That's a good
if
point.
we put a median down the center
That's
lane.
the kind of thing you've got to consider.
Okay, that was resolution 2023-64.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-064.
Second.
Motion by Gardner, second by Hoslope. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And resolution 10 is for the same project. Item 10, resolution 2023-065 approves Tetra Tech, Inc., continuing agreement for professional services for work order number 2 in the total amount of $63,535 for the Ventura Avenue Road resurfacing design project. Funding will be provided from the same FDOT scope grant.
Yeah, and then that's the distinction here. DOT's requirements, as you'll recall, they do not allow us to use the same engineering firm for both design and for a CEI under construction. So the plan here is to use Tetra Tech to do this design for the SCOP portion grant from the state, and then Johnson do the actual CEI for this portion, because you have to have those duties delineated.
Andy Tilton again for the record. A good distinction, manager, in that the $106,000 on the previous item did include design and CEI, because that funding allows that to be done under one. And this for Tetra Tech is just a design portion.
Didn't the resolution state that?
It's detailed in
The agreement.
in the agreement and the backup.
Well, in the official resolution, I
In the
didn't read
resolution
yet.
that-
It does say for engineering design and associated services.
General and associated services.
Yeah. As long as it's good for the grant and we understand what we're doing.
In the future, I think we need, if we're voting to spend money, we need to be more specific on what we're spending it on. Have general terms in a resolution
Okay.
stated in the contract or the agreement. If we're voting to spend money, it needs to be very specific.
All right.
You recommend any wording change or?
You could make a verbal modification to the resolution if you want to include just an extra sentence explaining, what it's going to.
Do a modification or just go with what we got? We have it on record.
I think we have it on
said
record,
it.
just moving forward, we can,
Okay.
I'm
if we-
comfortable with
if the other commissioners.
I'm comfortable with the motion that I seconded. Are you comfortable with the motion you made, Molly?
Oh, I didn't make a motion.
No, for number 9.
Oh, I'm good, knowing that the documents spell it out.
Okay, any more questions, discussion? Entertain a motion for resolution 2023-065.
Motion that we approve 2023-065.
Okay, motion by Hislop,
Second.
second by Edmonds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, long-awaited legislative summary.
Oh man, I'm up.
You're up. We didn't really get this till today, so.
Well, it's that time of year again. And man, they were busy up in Tallahassee. I know. Sorry, our friend from the League of Cities left. They had their hands full. I think when I gave this update last year, I had about maybe 5 or 8 pages. This one is 18. So please bear with me as I go through each page of this. Of course, I'm kidding.
Yes.
I think each of you would probably run me out of here and I'd never be welcome back if that occurred. So
That's a bad idea.
Just fix and say, can we summarize?
I'm just going to go over.
Some red in here?
Yeah.
Is that-
Yeah. I'm just going to go over a couple of the highlights. So the very first one, CS for SB 102, the Live Local Act. This is a big bill having to do with affordable housing. A lot of changes affecting building and zoning rules. So in an effort to make or expedite more affordable housing projects, now if a project has more than 10% of units that qualify as affordable, and those projects can now be developed in commercial and industrial zones, as well as in addition to mixed use, despite what any local regulations have to say on the matter. So you don't get a choice in it. If the developer is offering those numbers or those units, then they can circumvent local zoning codes. Now, if they are willing to push the number up even further to 40% of units that are designated as affordable, then there are additional handouts, essentially, to the developer. You're not allowed to require any special exceptions, variances, amendments, COAs regarding to height, zoning, or density on the project. And in addition, the developer is allowed to build their building height up to whatever the maximum height allowed is for other structures anywhere else within the municipality. Or within 3 miles to the project, or a maximum of 3 height, whichever is largest. So it's really a lot of benefits to developer if they're willing to increase the number of affordable housing units. They are given all of these abilities to increase the building height, or sort of get out of local requirements having to do with the height, zoning, and densities.
That's for home rule.
It's certainly taking away some local rights.
Dylan, does the Live Local Act, does it specify what affordable housing is?
I believe it does. I don't have anything listed in this summary here, but if you'd like, I can get you the details
just
of
curious
what
what-
actually qualifies.
I'm just curious what the
Yeah,
definition is for.
How much it
Yeah.
is, or so it's certainly something we'll have to keep an eye out for in the building department and the planning and zoning process if a developer comes through. In addition, there's also a requirement for municipalities to actually come up on their own with a list of areas that are possible areas for these developments, and to maintain a list on their own websites and there's a time limit for doing so. So the city will have to develop a list of these areas that could qualify for these types of developments, and we'll have to post that. And there's also a requirement that it needs to be updated every several years. Big change. The second one I wanted to go over is the second one on the list, SB 170, business impact statements. So now there's a new requirement that all municipalities, whenever you're going to pass an ordinance, you have to include in the summary whatever a possible impact would be to local businesses in the area. We already have, for example, on your backup that you receive for ordinances, we have things like, I think there's a little section in there for fiscal analysis, what it will cost the city. From now on, we'll have to include a business impact analysis on that as well. So it's a little extra work for the city staff. We'll have to make sure we implement that on ordinances in the future. There's some language in there that gives a new cause of action for business owners to bring suit against municipalities if they pass an ordinance which is arbitrary. I mean, it's sort of similar to what you already have. If you pass something that is completely ridiculous, it opens up to a potential challenge. I think this is coming back. A year or so ago, there was a proposed ordinance where if you passed an ordinance which would reduce a business's bottom line by more than 15%, then they were allowed to bring a challenge. That was vetoed, or it died on the floor. It never made it. So I think, that new cause of action is sort of a leftover from the previous year's attempt. But I certainly can't say for certain. I also include Testafix here in the description because a couple months back I reported to you on a case, Testa versus the town of Jupiter Island, wherein it was a case involving notice for ordinances. So when an ordinance got postponed and you didn't redo the newspaper advertisement, a court ruled that it was struck down and couldn't go into law. Which was sort of against the longstanding municipal practice of if you, for whatever reason, need to postpone a second reading, you can verbally state it on the dais. It's on the record, it's on the air. Anyone who's there for the first reading would have verbal notice that you've decided to postpone this to a subsequent meeting. However, the court ruled that's not okay. Amazingly, it really called into a question of does that mean that every ordinance that has ever been postponed on the dais on second reading has now invalidated because of this court's ruling? So the legislature caught wind of the court's decision and included in this bill a fix for that court decision. They legislated the old rule back into place. So I previously told you that you would have to re-advertise newspaper if you ever postpone anything. That is no longer the case. As long as you verbally state so on the dais, we are now back to the status quo. Last one I will report on, and this is one that's very close to home for all of you. This year in the session, they passed a requirement that municipal elected officials, now have to complete and file a Form 6 financial disclosure instead of the prior Form 1, which is what all of you would have been filing previously. The Form 6 is more detailed. In fact, it asks you to calculate what your estimated net worth is and submit that as well. There's also a new online system that each of you will have to submit those forms into. So it might be something you want to start looking into. So if you need to prepare, it might require a little bit more work on your parts in order to get that form completed and turned in. Now, if that's all the cases I'll report on, there's a lot of extra in here. There's a lot of interesting updates. There's some new stuff on food trucks and golf carts. I separated each of these out into the city department. I believe they affected, so I would recommend the department heads take a look and make sure that there's nothing in there that they need to, or just make sure that they're aware of it. I would encourage each of you to take a look. Perhaps if you're having a hard time sleeping and need some light reading material, this might be a great option for you. Of course, if there's any questions or concerns any of you have, or feel free to reach out to me and we can chat about any concerns you might have. And with that being said, aren't you glad I didn't go through this entire document?
And you stopped at page 3.
I stopped at page 3.
I have forwarded it to the department heads, and we will be looking at the ones that each of them need to begin addressing.
And that's all I've got.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
So,
Very welcome.
we'll read it.
Yeah, thank you for not reading all of it.
You're very, very welcome.
But I did notice the golf cart one is 18 years old or a learner's permit. Just throw out to the commander. I see lots of people under 18 driving them.
Yeah, we definitely gonna have to update our ordinance.
Yeah.
Does the state law supersede our ordinance?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we either
So
conform
do
or we gotta comply with the state ordinance regardless.
But, I mean,
Or
do we
state law.
just enforce the state ordinance, or,
Yes, in the interim until we can update our ordinance.
okay, do we need to? I mean, anyway, that's up to y'all to talk about, but.
Yeah. It's not totally preempted, but
Okay.
anything that doesn't conform to their rules,
Okay,
no dice.
I think that's actually in the ordinance, that if the state law supersedes it, then you follow state.
yeah, so I just didn't know, I mean, before we did it, because, I don't know, anyway, just wanted to mention that.
All right, old business, I don't know if you had a chance to look through. I know we're really into budget workshops at this point, but if there's anything hot, we can always add it to one of the budget workshops, if anyone wants to.
Yeah, we will be adding a couple items. That one of them in particular, the thing we just talked about as the engineer proceeds, if that happens during this time period, we'll add further discussions about the streetscape.
Okay, hearing none, the monthly reports from the departments.
Yeah, you received a couple of those tonight because of other obligations, but if you have any comments, we'll address.
Anything else from the city manager?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney? We'll start at this end this time. Commissioner Edmonds?
Congratulations on 20 years. Thank you very much. I was interested in the semis parking. They have been parking in our neighborhood, and I've called several times. The last time I called, they were not taken care of, but everybody was on vacation, so I just let it ride. Not our officers, but my neighborhood was on vacation, so. But still, it's a big deal to me when a gigantic red dump truck that's as big as a semi is parking in our neighborhood, and my neighbors are calling and complaining. Other than that, I'm good. I'm excited that we're moving along, and congratulations to our officers. Job well done.
Can I just ask, I mean, we talked about tonight was on commercial
Commercial property. This
right,
is
residential. Is there a difference between the commercial and residential? And
Yeah,
what-
you can't park them on private property in the residential areas.
at all.
Debbie does enforce that regularly.
Okay,
And
is that a
she-
code enforcement or is that law enforcement?
It's actually combined, it's 10227. That could proceed to our notice of hearing. I'll call them and they'll go out and give a verbal warning. Take care of our problem for a while, but these are definitely repeated.
And then they sneak back in.
Debbie, didn't you start working some weekends to try to curtail
I
that?
work at least one weekend a month.
Specifically for that?
That and others, but yes, there's a few other things that are on the specifics.
Yeah, that and the food trucks and the vendors and the other stuff on the weekends. She does flex
project.
on that.
Additions. Commissioner Thompson?
Just more positive change for the city, stuff we read off tonight. You can tell more than the rest of us, you've been here a long time. The last time in Clewiston history, this much positive change has happened this close. You know, resurfacing the roads, this new development, hotel, up now WCO ones, the water plant, wastewater plant. It's just a good time to be a commissioner. I can only look back to you all that were commissioners when it wasn't so good. Didn't have the money to spend and struggled to keep us going and put us to where we're at. And just excited to see what the future holds for the city of Clewiston.
Hear, hear.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I don't have much else to add, Mr. Pittman. Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner?
I just wanted, I know I mentioned it tonight, but just a real big thank you to Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart and his staff. I know that for several years, they worked very close with the city staff to get us those grant funds here, and it does make a difference because that is part of the good news. Not only for the wastewater treatment plant, but for the streetscaping and just other things that they worked on our behalf while he represented us. And I know he said that whatever we need from him, we just contact him, and he certainly works with Congressman Franklin. So I know also Congressman Franklin is going to work on our behalf, but it's great to have those federal partnerships. And certainly it's nice when the federal and state have funds to give back to the local level because it is a benefit. July 25th at 5:30, the property appraiser, Dina Pittman, has notified us, and I know she's listed it publicly, that her and her staff will be here to do a presentation for the community right here in the Clewiston City Commission chambers. And I think it's so important because I went to last year's presentation. It was very informative. But she's going to cover assessed values, exemptions, portability, and capping. And I would encourage everyone, the commissioners, city staff, and especially the community, to be here on July 25th at 5:30 at City Hall to hear the presentation. It's a worthwhile time to spend listening to the ins and outs of just appraising properties.
There will be opportunity for questions too.
Absolutely.
Is there a way that
interaction.
can be streamed, Randy?
I guess it'd be up to her, but we can check with her and see if she wants to do
I
that.
don't believe the one in LaBelle or the one here will be streamed, but she does have a presentation that she shows, a PowerPoint presentation. I think there's a handout, but, I mean, Randy should check with her.
If we could record it and we could post it on the website and people could look at it anytime, we'll check with her.
There's a presentation, I bet. It may be on her website, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I hadn't checked, so.
I
I
haven't
just,
either.
yeah, I
I
appreciate
spoke
her
with her
doing that here,
today,
and,
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that, her doing that for the Clewiston community. I know she was doing it for LaBelle, so I really just want to encourage the community to come and listen and ask questions. I have.
Okay. No, I just echo what everyone said. We're moving forward as quickly as possible. It's funds allow. I know there's still a lot out there to do, but we're gonna keep our heads up and hopefully keep getting grant money from the state, the feds, uncle, whoever we can get it from.
Yeah, I've already mentioned this to the mayor today. I'm planning on coming to you probably August or September, at least by September, to recommend this year's request. One of the high priorities I see is getting a price and putting forward a request for an update to our fire department with a ladder truck, some type of ladder, and getting congressional or state funding to purchase that. That's a popular item apparently among them, particularly congressional. It was mentioned to me, so I took that as a come ask. And so I'll be coming back to you with a price and an estimate because those are very expensive.
Probably doubled in the last 5 years.
Anything else? Want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Sloop and Gardner, and we are adjourned. We'll take a short break, a bathroom break, get a drink of water, and we'll say about 10 minutes, say 6:30, we'll start our